What's up, people, and welcome to my introductory tutorials to blockchains. So in this tutorial we're going to have a little bit closer look at how the blocks are composed. So you remember I had this chain of blocks that is linked together, and the way these blocks are composed of is that in the first block of the chain, this block, the first block of the chain is called the genesis block, and in my implementation it's going to look like this. It's going to have a block number that is incrementing. It's going to have something called a nonce, which we'll look at a little bit more in detail in a while. And then it's going to have a data field. And this data field is going to contain the transactions between the different accounts that we made. And then also it's going to have a hash. And the hash is composed of two parts. The first here, I call it a prefix. It's an arbitrary prefix that is enforced on the hash. So in this case I have 4 zeros that is enforced. And then the second part here is going to be the hash function of all the data of the block, except the hash, of course. So how this is going to work is it's going to take this section of the block, it's going to hash it, and then it's going to see the hash that I get from hashing this. Does that hash start with 4 zeros? And if it doesn't do that, it's going to change the nonce until it does. So in this case, if I grab this and I try to test it out here in the online hashing thingy, let's start with 0. So let's say that I'm using the prefix that I have here with 4 zeros. It's going to look at the hash. Is this 4 zeros? No, it's not. So it's going to change the nonce. Still not. Still not. It's going to keep on doing this until it gets, wait, it gets 1 0, but it doesn't really matter. It needs to be 4. But it's going to keep on doing this, changing the nonce number until it finds a solution. And that is what this nonce does. But it also means that there could be multiple solutions to this. You can have multiple blocks that gives the same prefix of 4 zeros, but this part is going to be different, of course. This is always going to be different. But this section can be resolved with multiple nonce. And that means that you will have a block that is valid, but you can also have another block that has a different hash that is also valid. And what that means is basically that you can have multiple chains that are valid. And what it means in practice, we're going to look at later. So this is the first block. This is the genesis block. So every other block after that block is going to look kind of like the same, but it's going to have one additional field except for the fields that it already has. So the block number here is going to increment. Now we're at the second block here. The nonce is going to be something else that is valid, of course. It's going to have different set of transactions, obviously. And it's going to have the same prefix, but it's going to have some other hash here. And it's also going to have an additional field called previous. And that previous field is going to contain the full hash of the previous block, in this case the genesis block. So it's going to look something like this. And then we have the next block, the block number 2. Now we're at this block right here, the third block. And it's going to have some other nonce, some other transactions, maybe 5 and 6. And then it's going to have the same prefix, but some other hash. And then in the previous block, it's going to have the hash of the previous block, this one right here. So you can see here that it's traceable backwards. I can trace them backwards to the genesis block, and I can also trace it from the start to the end by rehashing them. So if I select the genesis block, I hash it, then I get this hash, and then I can continue on hashing the next thing with the same nonce and check whether this is a valid blockchain or not. So let's see how that looks in practice. So I hope if you haven't set up the application, I highly suggest that you do that. You need, let me check here, and I have Node, what is it, like version? No. Okay, so this is my Node version right here. I'm in the directory of my application, the blockchain thingy. So in here I have the node models and everything. So you need to type npm install. That should install everything for you. And then I think you're pretty good to go. So I have a nodemon, which is a little bit better, I think, because it reloads if you save a file. So I use that. But you can also use just node like this. So in order for you to start it, you need to type like this. I'm going to go through the architecture later. But what I'm doing now is that I'm starting up one of the nodes, and we're going to see what happens when it starts up. So you can see here that I have my Genesis block. This is this section right here. Let's see here. Receive Genesis block. So yeah, right. So this is my Genesis block. So I have the nonce, the block number 0 here, and I have some hash. You can see that it's prefixed with 4 zeros, and obviously it doesn't have a previous block since it's the first one, right? So what we're gonna be doing in the next tutorial is gonna have a closer look at how we link these blocks together, right? Don't mind the other output. This is the Genesis block right here. So I hope it made sense. If there is any questions, please leave it in the comment below. And if you have any other comments, also do that. And I hope you guys liked it. I'll see you in the next tutorial.